Okay, so today we're going to start talking about the documentation for Java Draw, and that can be a little bit of a tricky topic because it's going to be a little bit overwhelming to begin with. That's okay. We'll work through it together. You'll have this video as a reference, but also kind of talking with your classmates, collaborating, all that stuff will be important. Okay, so last time I just drew this rectangle. We went through and we kind of messed around with some of these values to figure out what they're doing, and kind of understood that this is the top left value. The top, these first two values are the x and y coordinates of the very top left value. This is the width in pixels, and this was the height in pixels. Okay, so there's a lot of other tools that are in Java Draw that, if I made a video about each one of those and how they might work, this video series would be, very long, it'd be 10 hours worth of videos, and it'd be very tedious to kind of go through. So what I want to do, the point of this video is to show you how to uncover some of these things yourselves and be able to kind of look up new things yourself. It will be challenging. That's okay. There'll be some stuff that will be a little bit confusing to begin with. That's okay. You can rely on me. You can rely on your peers. Let's try and figure out this together. It'll take some kind of trial and error just to test it out, see how things work, and then understand this a little bit better. Okay, so with that in mind, we have you might have seen me as I was drawing this rectangle eyebrow. I was referencing. Oh, that's the versions of me. I was referencing maybe this page, and just copied and pasted this eyebrow thing off here. Yeah, and so we don't have to go through that same process for each one of these, for each one of the other objects you can make, because you can make an oval. You can see a bunch of ovals on the screen here. You can make triangles. You can make polygons, regular polygons. You can make irregular polygons. There's a lot of different things that you can make. You can put text up on the screen. You can do animations. There is a lot of stuff out there, and I want to try and highlight the important parts to you. But for some of the details for how they work, it's just not realistic and I don't think it's good practice for me to just explain every single piece of how this works, because videos are too long, and I don't think that would be necessarily that useful for you. So let's instead look into some of the documentation. So this is a tricky, challenging part. We'll go into documentation. So I'm going to put this link. I'll post this link multiple places for sure on any of these YouTube videos. I'll need to have this link to the main page. If we go to this main page, we can go into a couple places, good places to start. One is like quick start examples. That's what we were looking at previously, where it had some of these ovals and some stuff you just straight up copy and paste and mess around with to begin with. That's totally great. Once you want to dive a little bit deeper, or you have some questions, that's where our documentation comes in. So yeah, if you just want to kind of recreate what's on here, that's perfect. But if you want to kind of dive a little bit deeper, we all will eventually, we'll dive into this documentation. Click on that. There's a lot of stuff on here. I go right to this right side here. Let's see, quick reference. There is a quick reference on here, but I'm not sure it works quite as well. So the quick reference is just those kind of basic things that you might need to have. I prefer to go to this full API, but it might be a little bit overwhelming to begin with. So let's take a look at what they offer in here. I felt like this one didn't do a whole lot. Yeah, it's just got these two parts to it. So it has some interesting stuff, but yeah, not enough, not built out enough yet. Okay, so let's go instead. We're clicking on the full API thing here. We're going to click on this full generated documentation. We'll click on that. 3 versions open now. Okay, and what we're going to see here is this is like an official Java doc, like well-maintained collection of documents on here. So let's look into here. There's a bunch of stuff on the left side that we can mess with. So these are all things that we can either make. So you can see, as we get a little more advanced, we can maybe pull in an image. We can do things with lines, with locations. There's a decent number of things on here that we can mess with. Not a crazy number, but there are a few things to kind of mess with. So let's take a look into the documentation for the rectangle. Because I want to look at something we've already seen before and check out its documentation. Okay, so the key thing here, constructor. Constructor means, construct means to build. So this constructor here is like, how are we making the rectangle on the screen, right? What kind of values do we want to get started with our rectangle? Do I still have my rectangle up on the screen here somewhere? Seems like I probably, I might have closed it. Okay. But we put in those different values. So there's a lot of different ways we can construct a rectangle. The one we did was right here, right? We put it up on the screen. That was the first thing. You can look back at those videos, look back at your own code. We had an X and a Y value for the top left location of the object. We had a value for the width, and we had a value for the height. Great. There's other ways that we could have made our rectangle. So for example, let me just look at this next one here, if I wanted to make this one with a little bit of color, I could go back to my rectangle. Let's see if I have the code open here. I think I should have some room. Yeah, so, okay, eyebrow 1 is new eyebrow, new rectangle, all this stuff. And then in here, I'm going to follow my documentation. It says, well, after you put in these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, the sixth thing, if you put in these things first, you put in a color. And so I can put in just color, and actually we can look at the documentation to figure out exactly how this works, but I'll just show you that we type in color, dot, and then it'll give us a bunch of options to work with. So we can do color, let's say green. And so this is a different, let's check this out and see how what this appears as. Cool, we can see now we've made a green rectangle. So that was just using, we had everything else is the same, we just used a slightly different constructor, a slightly different builder to make our rectangle this time. And we added in an extra parameter. You can't do this just randomly, you can't just, it's like, it's going to look at the things you put into your rectangle, like, oh, they put in screen, they put in a double, and then color, oh, they must be using this constructor, right? So you have to kind of match that up a little bit there. But there's a lot of different things you can do here, and there's a ton of overwhelming stuff to begin with. This is the full documentation, so it's going to be overwhelming to begin with. It's going to give us a list of different constructors that we can use. So these are different things that you could do. So for example, you could move. We could take our rectangle and move it. So it's telling us we have a method called move. So if we go back in here, this is going to be a little bit, I know, I can feel already it's going to be a little bit challenging. That's going to be okay. We can do like eyebrow. So maybe we didn't like where our eyebrow was. Here, if we wanted to move it, do eyebrow 1. And we've access to some methods. So a rectangle doesn't just, well, maybe we'll dive into this a little bit more. Eyebrow isn't just an object. It's not like dead. It's not just up there displayed. We can also kind of move it around. So we can do like move 2. And maybe I just want to change this location. So I'm going to change the green one. I'm going to move it to location, let's say, I don't know, 200, 300. Go back to our code. Good. So we made our object here to begin with, and then we just kind of moved it immediately down to here. So there's a lot of stuff in here, and I think we'll have to do some sort of we need to collaborate and share what we've been able to find, what we're able to do, because there's a lot of stuff in here to do, and I think it's important that we can kind of share our learning. So this is the documentation. I'll continue to kind of introduce new objects. But ultimately, this is going to, I'll try and give a good overview and the kind of structure of how JavaDraw works. But there's going to be a lot of things where I'll ask you to look at the documentation to try and figure out some questions that you might have.